What is going on, football fans? Well, the NFL draft is over, and I wanted to make a quick video on some of the players that the New York Giants acquired that were undrafted free agents. And before you laugh and scoff and say, well, they went undrafted, I mean, they're not going to have an impact on this football team. Really? Well, I could give you a list of all-time great players, some of which are Hall of Famers, that were not drafted in the NFL, and some of the players are New York Giants. I mean, you go down the list. Warren Moon was undrafted. Kurt Warner was undrafted. Tony Romo was undrafted. Jeff Garcia, Priest Holmes, Arian Foster, Wes Welker, James Harrison. These are great players. Antonio Gates. You're talking about some all-time greats. And if you want to look at it from the Giants fans' perspective, Victor Cruz, I mean, he had a lot to do with winning that Super Bowl. Sean O'Hara, Lawrence Tynes, Antonio Pierce, Damon Snacks Harrison. All of these players were undrafted free agents. And sometimes you find a diamond in the rough. And the Giants in all, I think, signed 10 undrafted players. Might have been 12. But I picked out some of the guys on the list when I did some research that I thought could potentially crack the roster and maybe have an impact on this team going forward. The first player I wanted to talk about was Reggie White Jr. That is right. He is the son of the all-time great pass rusher Reggie White, who, of course, played for the Eagles and Green Bay Packers, and one of the best pass rushers to ever play the game. His son is a wide receiver. He's a tall wide receiver, 6'3". I think he's about 215 pounds. He had a great year this year. He caught for over 1,100 yards. I think he had 11 or 12 touchdowns. Had a great year for Monmouth University. Monmouth, of course, is known more for their academics, not so much their collegiate athletic programs. But there have been successful players come out of Monmouth in recent years, specifically the wide receiver position, and Miles Austin and Chris Hogan being two of them. Chris Hogan's a very good, productive wide receiver for the Patriots. Miles Austin, of course, had some very good years for the Dallas Cowboys. Now, do I expect that from this guy? Probably not, but you know what? He's a tall wide receiver. Maybe he could come in and compete for a job. We could use some, height to our wide receiver core. There's no doubt about it. He stands at 6'3". So I thought he was an interesting prospect. The next guy I want to talk about is the center from Buffalo, James O'Hagan. And I'm really excited about this player, and I think he could certainly crack the roster. And center, we all know, I said going into the draft, was a position that I expected the Giants to draft later in the draft, in the rounds 5, 6, 7. Of course, they traded 2 of their 5th-round picks to move up to get DeAndre Baker. Maybe they would have taken a center with one of those selections had they not done that. I think they need some depth there, especially Jalapeno. We all know he has health concerns, and he's not a slam dunk. We don't know he's going to be great. He was very good his first 2 games last year before the injury. But I thought they could certainly use some depth there, and that's exactly what James O'Hagan is. And another thing I read up on James O'Hagan that I really liked, he actually grew up 5 minutes from where I did. He grew up in Seaford, New York. I grew up in North Massapequa, neighboring towns, which is kind of cool. But 6'1", 303 pounds. Most people project him to be a backup at the NFL level, but I certainly think he could crack the roster and maybe even compete for that center spot. I doubt it. I think Jalapeno's the guy, but I'm excited about this pickup. I think this kid has some potential. There's no doubt about it. In 2016 and 17, he was ranked the best pass protector at the center position of draft-eligible centers. And this past year, he was ranked in the top 3 in run protection. So this guy certainly has some potential. We'll see where it goes. Of course, he went undrafted for a reason. They don't see him as a slam dunk prospect at the NFL level. But I think, he obviously has some work ethic. He came in there, barely even making the football team. He left being one of the best centers in the country. So we'll see what we got here in James O'Hagan. But if he has a good training camp, I think he could crack the roster. The next guy I'm excited to talk about is Paul Adams, the offensive tackle out of Missouri. And we all know that is probably one of our weakest position on this year's roster. And I was actually shocked that we did not address that right tackle position earlier than we did in the draft. But I do like this pickup, Paul Adams. He was originally projected to be a 5th to 7th round selection. He was the protection. He protected Drew Lock over at Missouri, one of the best quarterbacks in this year's draft class. And he was very good. Scouts said that he was great against elite pass rushers, especially against Alabama when he was protecting for Drew Lock. Now, there's a lot of potential. Now, there's certainly some negatives, which is why he went undrafted. Scouts say that he's probably going to struggle against elite pass rushers at the NFL level because he lacks the ability. He's not much of a knee bender. He's not super strong. But certainly sounds like a project and a guy that could add some depth to our offensive line. So I think this was a good pickup by the New York Giants. The next guy a lot of people were excited about, and I hope I'm pronouncing this right, Joseph Taefa. I know I'm not pronouncing it right. Joseph Taefa, he's a middle linebacker And the Giants already have a lot of depth at that position. There's no doubt about it. Alec Ogletree, B.J. Goodson, Tay Davis, Ryan Connolly, of course, they drafted. But this guy has a lot of potential, and he had really good numbers this year at UTSA, where he had 113 tackles, 11.5 tackles for loss, 4.5 sacks. He was also named one of the 10 semifinalists for the Dick Butkus Award. So he's certainly a guy that I think could potentially crack the roster and has some potential. We'll see how it goes. But a guy that at a position where I think we could use some depth. I was very excited when we took Connolly because I thought we needed to draft a middle linebacker in this year's draft. Something Jerry Reese had neglected for years in drafts. And Dave Gettleman goes out there and he picks up another one that could potentially compete for some depth on this roster at the middle linebacker position. And then finally, a player that most people think is probably the best player that we acquired in undrafted free agency. That's Mac McLaurin, the safety out of Mississippi State. And now the thing with him is why I don't think he has as good of a chance as some of these other players to crack the roster is safety. We kind of already have some talent there, but we definitely needed some depth. I could see this guy being a backup safety on the roster. Maybe he cracks the starting rotation at some point. Who knows? But, of course, we picked up Bethea and Jabril Peppers via the trade, so I doubt that. But, out of Mississippi State, he has talent. He was projected to definitely go drafted in this year's draft before he had an underwhelming combine. He only ran a 4.77 40 time. He had some off-the-field troubles. I wasn't exactly able to find out exactly what it was. But everybody says he's a very productive football player. And the only way he's going to crack this roster, though, probably because of the depth they already have at safety. Obviously, I didn't name Michael Thomas. I didn't name Sean Chandler. So they certainly have some players already at the position that he's going to have to compete with. He is going to have a very, very strong training camp if he expects to crack the Giants' opening day roster. But those are just some of the names I wanted to go over. I'm more excited about the offensive linemen than anything else. But I think all those guys potentially could crack the roster. There's no doubt about it. And who knows? Maybe one of them is the next Victor Cruz or Sean O'Hara or Damon Snacks Harrison, Antonio Pierce. Who knows? You never know. But, I wanted to get it up on the page because a lot of people asked me to do a quick video on it, so I did. And as always, if you liked what you watched, please subscribe. Drop a comment. Maybe give me a thumbs up. Cheers.